In the ferocious, cold, and plunder-filled realm of nature, the laws of survival are often equated with the absolute dominance of strength, the ultimate gamble of speed, and the merciless exit of the individual. Yet, when the sun sinks completely beneath the horizon of the Antarctic Circle and a months-long polar night seals the entire wilderness like a colossal black shroud, a certain creature makes the most counterintuitive choice, marching by the thousands into the deep ice barrens where the blizzard rages hardest. Tonight, accompanied by the gently flickering hearth and this story you need not effortfully remember, let us step into his true life. This male emperor penguin stands quietly in the epicenter of an Antarctic polar night storm at -40 degrees, cold enough to shatter bones in an instant. His massive frame, clad in thick, scale-like waterproof feathers, appears boundlessly serene under the faint aurora. The outside world is accustomed to gazing upon their grace and agility as they glide underwater in bright ocean documentaries, but few truly understand that this seemingly clumsy creature is placing himself in a months-long ordeal of huddling, completely devoid of supplies. The icy waste sanctuary he has carved out faces a raging, lethal blizzard outside, yet inside, relying solely on the rigorous condensation of thousands of physical bodies, preserves a miraculous temperature hovering close to 35 degrees Celsius, ample to sustain the continuation of life. To survive upon this dark wilderness where no living thing can fight a lone battle, the emperor penguin made a series of astonishing, even poignant sociological compromises along its lengthy evolutionary path. He surrendered the freedom of traditional birds to spread wings and soar, anchoring his entire existence to a highly rigorous, deeply orderly collective trust, using an almost obsessive huddling compression to dissolve the harshest physical cold on the frozen earth. This is no loose gathering packed with play and frolic, but a stoic sentinel keeping vigil in the deep polar night, weaving a voiceless symphony across the shifting snow through a lifetime of strides, endurance, and ultimate tacit cooperation. Now, please let your breath lengthen and slow down with the rhythmic, low murmur of respiration beside the emperor penguin, immersing yourself in this midnight dreamscape tenderly wrapped in collective warmth. When the final sliver of autumn moisture completely vanishes from the marginal seas, the biting Antarctic gale, laden with razor-sharp ice crystals, begins to unfold silently across the boundless blue ice. At this hour, when most migratory birds and marine mammals choose to journey north out of dread for the bitter winter, returning to temperate waters, this powerful emperor penguin, treading heavy, waddling, yet resolute steps, walks toward that desolate inland plateau of perpetual frost against the direction of the storm. To comprehend this being's anomaly, we must first confront his strict physiological ledger that offers no retreat. This is the turning point of his life and the first rift of destiny he must cross alone. At this moment on the Antarctic continent, the sea waters are freezing over in vast swathes, traditional hunting grounds are cut off hundreds of kilometers away by thick ice sheets, and continuing to linger by the coast means immense wave hazards and the danger of being unable to make landfall. To accomplish the mission of reproduction throughout the impending polar night, the emperor penguin must trek dozens or even 100 kilometers before the blizzard locks the barrens down entirely, heading toward a level, sacred haven that can evade glacial shelves collapsing. This is an immensely physically grueling long march. Elephantine heavy steps leave 2 deep sliding furrows upon the soft snow, yet his movements display not a modicum of haste. Each stride is deliberate, filled with anatomical precision. Across weeks of trekking, he can only rely on burning the thick layers of fat hoarded from summer foraging to provide kinetic energy, the internal fire of life flickering weakly, incapable of supporting any intense expenditure. When he finally converges with thousands of his peers in the center of that bleak ice valley, the last glint of twilight in the sky plummets entirely into darkness, and the entire polar wilderness is swallowed by a deathly hush. Within this narrow universe forged from ice and snow, time seems to instantly lose all its sharp edges, transforming into a tranquil river flowing so slowly it almost grinds to a complete halt. However, within this isolated ice waste haven, the price of life paid by the emperor penguin is an ordeal of physiological and sociological extremes unimagined by the outside world. While the world outside endures a months-long polar night of -50 degrees and the gale wrenches piercing shrieks from century-old ice, the female penguins on the polar wastes, having spent their entire physical energy to lay a single precious egg, must immediately set off to return to the ocean hundreds of kilometers away to forage. The heavy responsibility of guarding this egg of life falls unreservedly upon this remaining male emperor penguin. From this moment onward, through a long span of 4 to 5 months, he will taste neither food nor water, and even superfluous movement will be heavily restricted. We must understand that Arctic blizzards frequently exceed 150 km per hour. Under such terrifying wind chill factors, any solitary penguin would be thoroughly frozen through and stripped of its core body heat within a few short minutes. To battle this freezing torrent capable of annihilating all life, this remaining male emperor penguin and thousands of his peers, in the absence of any leader's command, begin to gather spontaneously toward the center, weaving the greatest sociological defense net in the natural world, the huddle formation. Using their airtight, rigid backs to face the blizzard, they press their bodies tightly together without a single gap, forming a massive black mountain carved out of raw flesh. Inside this mountain, due to the convergence of countless breaths and core heat, temperatures soar rapidly to an incredible 35 degrees Celsius, even forcing penguins sitting at the absolute core to slightly part their feathers to vent heat. Yet, this huddle formation is no static cage. If the penguins positioned on the outer perimeter, directly absorbing the brunt of the -40-degree blizzard, lingered there forever, they would rapidly exhaust their stamina and freeze to death, while the internal penguins would swoon from overheating. In this pure sociological structure completely devoid of hierarchy or power relations, a striking silent chemistry begins to flow rhythmically in the dark. After enduring the polar freeze for a duration, penguins on the outermost perimeter slightly angle their bodies, treading slow, step-by-step strides along the margin of the huddle to move in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. The companions behind them intuitively fill the gaps left behind, while internal penguins migrate toward the outer margin as slowly as microscopic particles shifting in a fluid current, charting a perfect, circular cycle of life rotation spanning thousands of individuals. This ultimate discipline over energy and unreserved sharing coaxes their brains into a state akin to meditative serenity. He has no need to ponder the abundance of the ocean or scheme tomorrow's direction. He only needs to take that minute step of a 10,000th of a meter within the blizzard to fulfill the collective, and in doing so, fulfill himself. Around the winter solstice in July, when the polar night reaches its absolute depth and the darkness seems as though it will never lift, at the very bottom of this warm mountain condensed from raw flesh, atop the bridge of this penguin's feet, a life vigil unfolds, the tenderest yet most heart-wrenching in the epic of existence. This male emperor penguin has now fasted continuously for over 2 months, his weight has shrunk by nearly half, his once plump frame appearing gaunt and hollowed out. Only his feet and that specialized anatomical patch beneath his abdomen preserve a most sacred warmth. His egg rests securely upon the bridge of his feet, which are lined with coarse scales and thick hide. Over it drapes a thick brooding pouch specialized from abdominal skin and lined with dense down, known scientifically as the brood patch. This patch is richly wired with blood vessels, steadily pouring the parent's final embers of energy downward, while directly beneath his body lies the hardened ice surface at -40 degrees. Throughout this lengthy incubation period spanning over 60 days, the emperor penguin must maintain a unique, near-static standing posture at all times. He cannot make large movements, even when rotating positions within the huddle. He must shift his body forward using a painfully slow, waddling, shuffling glide. For if he accidentally loosens his feet and the egg makes contact with the ice for even a few short seconds, the quickening life within will be flash-frozen by the Antarctic freeze, snuffed out in its cradle. This is an immensely heavy cost. It demands this leviathan to surrender all instincts to stretch his frame, keeping his nerves and muscles strung taut against that 10,000th balance line. Every time the blizzard violently slams the huddle formation, his frame tremors faintly from sheer exhaustion, yet his talons grip the ice as though rooted, using his flesh as an absolute, insurmountable barrier of life. In this boundless dark, the lone melody across the storm-beaten wastes is the roar of the outer gale and the rhythmic, raspy respiration of countless lives within the huddle. These two forces interlace and echo, softening into a perfect midnight lullaby. The father uses his flesh and life as fuel, igniting a torch beneath the ice and snow that never goes out, passing this survival code down silently through generations for thousands of years. When the tail end of August delivers the first ray of long-lost, faint sunlight, casting a dreamy golden warmth through the glacial mists of the horizon onto the frost-coated black backs of the huddle, this emperor penguin finally welcomes the grandest liberation of his life and the most poignant turning point of destiny. Upon the bridge of his feet, the egg, amidst an exceedingly faint click of a splitting shell, finally hatches into a downy, large-eyed chick. Yet, due to the hardships of the long trek, the foraging line of mothers has not yet returned. The internal physiological alchemy sustained for months hits its most helpless zenith. In a state of starvation where his body has cannibalized itself to the limit, the father's esophageal glands begin to secrete a faint, viscous fluid rich in proteins and fats, akin to crop milk. This is the final nutrition he keeps for his offspring, bartered with his own life. As he lowers his head, guiding this thread of secretion tenderly into the chick's beak with his long bill, a massive returning vanguard of thousands of mothers finally punctuates the distant horizon. They carry back full stomachs of fresh fish and krill, bringing the abundance of the sea and the breath of spring. An echoing chorus of trumpeting instantly erupts across the colony, the ancient chemistry of mates tracing one another through unique acoustic signals among thousands of individuals. When the father finally transfers the exhausted yet miraculously surviving chick intact to his mate, he lacks even the spare energy for warmth, his internal fuel is utterly drained, and he must immediately set off alone to return to that ocean from which he has been parted for months. Turning away, treading upon feet stiffened by months of bearing weight, he walks lonely toward that icebound passage leading to the sea. The outer ice floes are fracturing and melting silently with the arrival of spring, transforming into a scattering of isolated islands drifting in the dark sea. He glides slowly across the disintegrating ice field, his gaze reflecting no ecstatic triumph, but merely a stoic numbness and certainty born of surviving an apocalypse. He knows the home he depends on is shifting, but his mission has achieved its most dignified execution within the breathing miracle of the huddle. Throughout the lengthy and lonely migration back to the ocean, the emperor penguin relies precisely on that tenacity etched into the deepest core of its genes and the ultimate tacit understanding of the collective to guide its lineage across the polar chasm of life and death time and again. Outsiders frequently praise their comical charm and cuteness in shallow water exploration as they hop among glaciers, mistakenly believing them to be the carefree darlings of the Antarctic. Yet, few witness their disheveled unselfishness in the heart of a blizzard, actively treading toward the outer perimeter to shield their companions. Still fewer comprehend their months-long, starving, voiceless vigil in the deep polar night. They lack the advanced intellect to reverse global warming trends that trigger premature fracturing of spring ice floes, nor do they possess extra weapons to battle the squeeze of the era. Their sole armor is that huddle formation woven from their own raw flesh and trust. Under this extreme concentration upon lineage and restraint, time seems to lose its past sharp edge upon their bodies, no longer a monster hounding life to sprint forward. Glaciers dissolve and seasons turn, while they merely follow the contract of an ancient system quietly, igniting the lone glimmer of hope upon the barrens with collective warmth during every winter night when the cold wind howls. This blind vigil, this unreserved surrender to life, may appear poignant under the brutal laws of natural selection, but within the vast epic of the universe, it commands an unrivaled dignity of life. He uses his entire existence to prove to this cold, volatile world that true security is never dictated by how ferocious the external storm rages, but by whether you can lean your bodies tightly together in the harshest extremes, constructing a warm nest belonging to trust. At midnight, the Antarctic wilderness gradually reclaims its primal peace. That distant storm and the roars of collapsing glaciers long dissolve into the lengthy river of time. The brilliant, hazy aurora, like a delicate green ribbon, flows tenderly across the deep night sky, sprinkling a faint, soothing glimmer upon the boundless, frozen earth. The emperor penguin, having weathered the ordeal of the polar night, the huddle trial, and the migration back to the sea, is perhaps sleeping peacefully alongside his family beneath another tranquil ice shadow now. In the prologue, we sought to uncover the riddle of destiny behind its refusal to fall at -40 degrees. Now, having listened to this chronicle of physiological ledgers, unselfish rotation, and torches of life, those mysteries have found their best home within the long wind of this long night. It has left no eternal structures upon the earth, nor carved brilliant triumphs into history. What it leaves to these barrens are merely those firm, gentle, waddling footprints that vanish with the blizzard yet reappear every single spring. Listening to the faint wind outside your window, a white noise like the long polar night wind across the barrens, and watching the final, faint, introverted warm glow of the hearth fire in your room, has the tight tension within your nerves finally received the gentlest comfort? No matter how ferocious the external storm rages, it can never invade this fortress built of memory and trust. Be like that creature beneath the ice and snow, completely drawing its body close to its companions through orderly rotation. On this night that requires nothing of your wakefulness, requiring you to battle no external storms alone, gently lay down all thoughts of gains, losses, anxieties, and tomorrows. Let your body settle slowly with the warmth of your bed, and let your mind dissolve completely into that pool of dreams, devoid of cold, containing only absolute order and sanctuary. Along with this story you need not effortfully remember. The night is far spent, and the wilderness has hushed into silence. May you carry this collective chemistry across thousands of years, rest peacefully, have a beautiful dream, and good night.